I stood in the doorway of my childhood bedroom, unable to breathe. The house I'd lost 15 years ago surrounded me like a ghost made real. Jonah stood behind me holding the deed with my name on it. He'd bought back everything I thought was gone forever. But houses carry memories, and some doors once opened change everything. Like and subscribe for more true stories of love, loss, and second chances that change everything. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning in late March while I was reviewing architectural drawings at my desk in Baltimore. Subject line: Estate Sale Inquiry, 428 Sycamore Drive. I stared at that address for a full minute before my hand started shaking. Sycamore Drive. My street. Once, I'd trained myself not to think about that house. But seeing those numbers brought everything back with a force that made my coffee taste like metal. The sender was someone named Jonah Winters. He'd purchased the property and discovered during renovations that the original architectural plans were missing from county records. He'd tracked down my father's name as the designer and hoped I might have copies. My father had been dead for 16 years. The house had been gone almost as long. I sat there at Mercer and Ross, surrounded by blueprints for condos that meant nothing to me, and felt the careful distance I'd built between myself and Richmond collapse like wet paper. Richmond, Virginia, the city where I'd grown up in a house my architect father designed for our family, every angle chosen with intention. The city where we'd lost everything when he died and the medical bills came due. I didn't answer that day, or that week. But I kept the email marked unread, a small blue dot of unfinished business. 3 weeks later, a second message arrived. I found something during the renovation that I think belongs to you. If you're ever in Richmond, I'd like to return it in person. No pressure. Just wanted you to know it's here waiting. That night I looked up Jonah Winters online. A LinkedIn profile, maritime insurance surveyor. One visible photo. A man a year or two older than me. Dark hair standing on a boat dock, smiling at whoever was behind the camera. Something about that smile made me keep looking longer than I should have. I booked a train ticket to Richmond before I could talk myself out of it. I told myself I was going to see my mother, who still lived in the city. That was partially true. The train pulled into Main Street Station on a warm Saturday in late April. I'd rented a car so I wouldn't have to explain where I was going. I drove through streets I'd once known by heart, and when I turned onto Sycamore Drive, it was like stepping into a photograph from 15 years ago. The trees were taller, the pavement newer, but the houses were the same. And there, halfway down on the left, was 428. I parked across the street and stared. The house was beautiful. It had always been beautiful. My father had designed it in a style he called contemporary traditional. Big windows and clean lines, but with classical proportions that made it feel permanent. Someone had repainted it. The oak tree in the side yard was enormous now. I was working up the courage to knock when the door opened, and a man stepped onto the porch. I recognized him from the photo, though he looked older, more real. Jeans, a faded blue shirt, sleeves rolled up. I got out and walked across the street, my heart doing something complicated. "Theo?" he said when I reached the steps. "How did you know I'd come today?" He smiled, the same crooked smile from the photo. "I didn't, but I've been watching for you every weekend since I sent that second email." His honesty caught me off guard. "Do you want to come in?" he asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and walked into the house I'd grown up in. The inside was different. Newly painted walls, refinished floors, a redone kitchen. But the bones were the same. The flow of the rooms, the light through the south-facing windows, the angle of the stairs. I stood in the front hall and felt 15 years old again. "I bought it last October," Jonah said quietly, giving me space. It had been a rental for years. Not in great shape. But the structure was sound and the design was incredible, so I thought I'd try to bring it back. Most of it I did myself. I walked slowly through the first floor, remembering. The living room with the piano I'd never learned to play. The den where my father had kept his drafting table before he got too sick to work. Do you want to see what I found? Jonah asked. He led me upstairs to my old bedroom, empty now except for boxes. In the closet floor was a loose board I'd pried up at 12 to make a secret hiding place. He knelt and lifted it, taking out a metal fireproof box and handing it to me. I knew what was inside before I opened it. Things I'd hidden at 14, the year my father got diagnosed. A journal, old photos, and underneath, folded carefully, a set of architectural drawings, my father's original plans for this house. With all his notes in the margins, his handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. 14-year-old me must have taken them from his office and hidden them here, trying to keep something of his safe before everything fell apart. I thought you might want them back, Jonah said. Take your time. I'll be downstairs. He left, closing the door softly. I sat on the floor of that empty room and let myself remember everything I'd been avoiding for 15 years. My father had died when I was 16. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4 by the time they found it. The medical bills had been catastrophic. We'd lost the house and most of what he'd saved. My mother had handled it with a strength I still didn't understand. Sold the house, moved us to a small apartment, worked 2 jobs to keep me in school. I'd gone to college on scholarships, studied architecture to stay close to him, and built a life that required very little of me emotionally. But sitting there holding those drawings, I realized how much I'd been carrying, how much I'd closed off because needing things hurt too much. When I finally went downstairs, Jonah was making coffee. He walked me through each room, explaining what he'd done and what he still wanted to do, preserving the original design while updating the systems, honoring the architect's intent. He'd clearly studied my father's work. You really care about this, I said. When I saw this place, something about it just felt right. Like it was asking me to pay attention. My father designed houses that way. He wanted them to feel like they had something to say. Jonah smiled. He succeeded. We were standing in the living room, late afternoon sun coming through exactly the way my father had planned. I didn't want to leave. Would you want to have dinner? The words came out before I'd fully decided. He looked surprised, then pleased. I'd like that. We met at Bamboo Cafe at 7. He told me about surveying damaged vessels and maritime claims, about traveling constantly and being tired of temporary housing. That's why I bought the house. I wanted a place that was actually mine. He asked about my work, and I told him about the firm in Baltimore, the projects that paid well but rarely excited me. How I'd wanted to design homes like my father, but the economics had pushed me toward commercial work. Do you like it? It's fine, I said, the most honest answer I had. He was easy to talk to. He listened like what I said actually mattered. It was after 10 when we left, and neither of us moved to go. Can I see you tomorrow? Before you go back? I should have said no, kept this simple. After lunch with my mother, I agreed. I saw my mother the next day. She looked happier than I'd seen her in a while. She'd started dating someone from her book club. You seem different, she said. Lighter. I told her about the house, the email, finding the drawings. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm glad you went. I've always worried that place haunted you. But your father never wanted us stuck in the past. He designed that house for the family we were then, but he would have wanted us to keep living after. That afternoon, I went back to Sycamore Drive. Jonah and I walked the neighborhood, and I told him about biking to school. The winter we'd built a snow fort. We ended up on the porch as the sun set. I don't know what I'm doing, I said quietly. Being here. Talking to you like we've known each other longer than a day. I don't know either. But I'm glad you came. I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Possibility. I'd like to stay in touch, if that's okay. I'd really like that. I left Richmond the next morning with my father's drawings packed in my bag and Jonah's number in my contacts. That week I called him 3 times. We texted most days. 2 weeks later, he drove up to Baltimore and the conversation picked up exactly where we'd left it. This is going somewhere, I told my coworker Vanessa. Theo, I've known you 5 years, and this is the first time I've seen you excited about something that isn't a roofline. We fell into a pattern. Trading weekends, 2 hours on I-95 becoming routine. Slowly, I let him in. We were lying in his backyard one June night when he asked the question I'd been avoiding. What happened after your father died? It felt like losing him twice. First his death, then the house, everything he'd built. I was angry for a long time. Then I just buried it. And now I'm terrified. Because I'm starting to feel things again, and I don't know if I remember how to do that without it destroying me. He took my hand. You don't have to do it alone. July came. My firm offered me a promotion, more money, longer hours, less flexibility. I told them I needed time. That weekend, driving back from Charlottesville, I told Jonah I wasn't going to take it. Why not? Because I don't want that life anymore. I've been doing work that's fine, living in a place that's fine. I don't want fine anymore. I looked at him. When I'm in Richmond in that house with you, I feel more like myself than I have in 15 years. He pulled over. Move in with me, he said. That's crazy. We've known each other 4 months. I bought your childhood home and waited on the porch every weekend hoping you'd show up. We're already past crazy. I started laughing. He was right. 2 months later, I moved to Richmond. My mother helped me unpack and cried seeing me back in those rooms. He would have loved this. The house being cared for. You being happy. Jonah. I'd found work at a smaller firm doing residential projects and historic preservation. Less pay, better work, the kind of spaces my father had loved. It wasn't always easy. We fought about small things, learning to share space. I had moments of panic where I'd wake convinced I'd ruin everything by needing too much. But Jonah was patient, reminding me that needing people wasn't weakness. One Saturday in October, a year after he'd bought the house, he led me to the basement and handed me a flat package wrapped in brown paper. I found this behind the water heater. Inside was a framed drawing, one of my father's, a perspective sketch of the house before construction. In the corner, he'd written, "For the life we'll build here." I understood something I'd been too young to grasp before. The house had never been the point. It was the container. What mattered was the life lived inside it. Should we hang it? Jonah asked. In the living room. Where we can see it every day. Winter came cold and clear. Jonah and I developed routines. Saturday farmers markets, Sunday house projects, weeknight dinners in my father's kitchen. My work at Riverside Architecture fed me rather than drained me. I was helping a young family preserve a historic home in Church Hill, remembering why I'd gone into architecture in the first place. But there was something I'd been avoiding. You need to tell them, Vanessa said when she called one evening. My family wasn't conservative, but we'd gotten good at surface conversations after my father died. Coming out to my mother years ago had been easy. She'd said she loved me and wanted me happy. But I'd never introduced anyone to the broader family. Now I was building a life with someone. The opportunity came when my Aunt Sandra called about my grandmother's 80th birthday gathering. Can I bring someone? His name is Jonah. A pause. Well, we look forward to meeting him. The gathering was in Glen Allen. I warned Jonah they might be weird, ask invasive questions. He took my hand. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together. The afternoon was exactly as awkward as I'd feared, and somehow also fine. Some relatives were warmly welcoming, some politely distant. Jonah handled the tense questions with an easy grace I envied. My grandmother pulled me aside, fierce and sharp even at 80. So that's him. He bought our house. He did. Your father would have liked that. Someone caring for that place properly, and he would have liked seeing you happy. Aren't you? I looked at Jonah across the room. Yes, I am. Then that's what matters. March brought the first warmth of spring. I was working late one Thursday when my phone rang. A Richmond number. This is Dr. Mendez from VCU Health. I'm calling about Patricia Casteller. You're listed as her emergency contact, my mother. What happened? She had a cardiac event this afternoon. She's stable, but you should come as soon as you can. I don't remember the drive. I called Jonah from the parking lot and he said he was on his way. Heart attack, moderate damage. The next 48 hours would be critical. Jonah arrived an hour later and just sat with me while the machines beeped. "You should go home," I told him after midnight. "Get some sleep." "I'm staying." My mother woke the next morning, groggy then increasingly herself. The damage could have been worse. Jonah brought me clean clothes and food, called my aunt, canceled my work appointments. He kept the world running while I focused on her. When they discharged her a week later, she couldn't go home alone. "She'll stay with us," Jonah said. "There's plenty of room." So my mother moved into the guest bedroom, the house she'd sold 15 years earlier. "This is surreal," she told me one afternoon, sitting in the living room. "Being back here, seeing you happy here. Definitely good." She stayed 6 weeks. Jonah cared for her with the same steady attention he brought to everything, and I fell more in love with him. "You picked a good one," she said one evening when he was out. "Does he know you love him?" "I haven't said it yet. Because once I say it, I'm all in. No going back. Theo, you're already all in. You moved your whole life here. The words are just catching up to what's already true." That night when Jonah got home, I helped him put away groceries. "I love you," I said. "My mother almost died and you've been taking care of both of us and I don't want to wait anymore." He put down the apples and crossed the kitchen. "I love you too. I've been waiting for you to catch up." By May, my mother was strong enough to return to her apartment. "What do we do with the guest room now?" I asked. Jonah led me upstairs and showed me a 3D model on his laptop, built-in shelving, a drafting table by the window. "What if we turned it into a home office for you? You could take on freelance clients, build the kind of practice you actually want." I stared at the screen. He'd thought through everything. "It's perfect. We spent a month converting the room." Jonah built the shelving and desk himself. I painted the walls gray-blue, hung my father's sketches. I took on my first freelance client in July, a young couple renovating a bungalow. Small, but mine. Jonah's work took him away more in summer. Hurricane season meant more claims, more travel. I'd miss him with an intensity that would have scared me a year ago. But I was learning that missing someone and trusting they'd come back were different things. September brought my 1-year anniversary in Richmond. Jonah surprised me with dinner at La Mer and handed me a small box, a copy of the house key on a chain. A reminder that you're home. I wore it every day after October. 2 years since Jonah had bought the house. Everything felt settled and right, until a Thursday afternoon when I got a call from a Baltimore number. "This is Mitchell Kerrigan from Donovan and Associates. We have a position, senior residential architect, leading a new division focused on high-end custom homes." "I think you'd be perfect." My heart started beating faster. This was the kind of opportunity I dreamed about. The position is based in Baltimore, but the compensation is substantial and there's significant creative freedom. I should have said no immediately. "Can I think about it?" The email arrived the next morning. The money was almost double what I made now, and it was 2 hours away from the life I'd built. I didn't tell Jonah. I told myself I was processing, but really I was scared of what telling him would mean. That weekend, I was half present, distracted. I called Vanessa. "That's a career-defining offer," she said. "Have you talked to Jonah?" "Not yet. Why not?" I didn't have a good answer. I asked Mitchell if there was flexibility on location. There wasn't. They needed someone in the office. I called my mother. "What do I do?" "What do you want to do?" "Part of me wants to take it. But if I leave Richmond, I'm giving up something I can't get back." "You're giving up Jonah. Do you remember what you told me when you moved here? You were tired of a life that was just fine. So which choice gives you more?" Sunday night in bed, I finally said it. "I got a job offer in Baltimore, leading a new residential division." Jonah went still. "And you're just telling me now?" I didn't know how. He turned on the light. "Do you want the job?" "Professionally, yes. But it would mean leaving you. Or long distance. I don't know if I can do long distance. I'm barely good at regular distance." He got out of bed and pulled on a shirt. "I need some air." I found him on the back porch 20 minutes later. I bought this house because I wanted roots, he said. When you showed up, it felt right. Like the house was waiting for you. But I can't be your reason to stay. You have to want this for yourself. I'm scared, I admitted. This thing with us is the best thing that's happened to me. And that terrifies me. What if I give up this job and then something happens? That's the risk, Theo. That's what love is. You don't get guarantees, he went inside. We slept on opposite sides of the bed, not touching. I called in sick Monday and spent the day staring at the job description. Then looking around the office Jonah had built me, the shelves, my father's drawings, the desk positioned for morning light. This room was designed for exactly the work I wanted to do, just on a smaller scale. Did scale matter? Or was I chasing something that looked like success but wouldn't make me happy? I called Mitchell. Why me? There must be architects with more experience. You understand how to design spaces that feel personal. Not just beautiful houses, but homes that reflect who people are. He was right about what I understood. But I'd learned that lesson here, in this house, with Jonah, living in a space designed with intention, watching him restore what my father had built. My mother called Tuesday. You're being selfish. Not for considering the job, that's reasonable. But you're putting all the weight on whether the relationship will last, and that's not fair to Jonah. He's been clear. He wants you. You're the one who's uncertain. I'm not uncertain about him. I'm uncertain about the opportunity. Then it's a professional decision, so make it professionally. Which path serves the work you want to do? That evening, I looked at every project I'd done since moving to Richmond. Modest renovations, but mine. I'd worked directly with clients, designed solutions that fit their lives. That was the work I loved. Not the prestige. And none of it required moving to Baltimore. Thursday, I asked Jonah to talk. I'm not taking the job, I said. I've been asking the wrong question. The real question is what kind of work I want to do, and the answer is the kind I'm already doing here. That job would be impressive, but it wouldn't be mine. It would be someone else's vision. You're not just saying that to make me happy? No, and I'm sorry I didn't include you earlier. This affects both of us. I want to be better at making decisions together. He took my hand. We're learning. Both of us. That night we slept curled together for the first time since Sunday. I declined the offer and gave notice at Riverside. By December I was fully freelance, a simple website, contractors, and agents in my network. The work came slowly, then steadily. A kitchen in Church Hill, a bathroom in the Fan, an attic conversion. One Saturday in January, repainting the upstairs hallway, Jonah said, "What would you think about getting married? Not right now necessarily. Eventually." I almost dropped the roller. Yes, that's something I'd want. He smiled. Good, me too. February brought a project that changed everything. A couple in Bon Air wanting a new house on a wooded lot. My first ground-up design entirely my own. I spent weeks understanding their lives, drawing and redrawing. When I presented the final design in March, they cried. Said I'd understood them better than they understood themselves. That's when I knew this was the work I was meant to do. In November, Jonah proposed, just the two of us in the kitchen on a random Tuesday. He handed me a small box. I want to spend my life with you here. Will you marry me? I said yes before he'd finished. We married the following April under the oak tree. Small ceremony, family, and close friends. My mother cried through the whole thing. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising to build a life in this house and whatever came after. My grandmother pulled me aside at the reception. Your father would be so proud. Not just of your work, of this. You being happy, building something real. I wish he could have met Jonah. He did, in a way. Jonah loves the house your father built. He understands what it means. That's its own kind of meeting. Years passed. I built a small but successful practice designing custom homes around Richmond. Jonah cut back on travel, taking a regional position. My mother stayed healthy. My grandmother passed peacefully at 84. One evening on the porch, Jonah said, "What would you think about fostering? Older kids, teenagers? We have the space. We have stability. I thought about how we'd both been given second chances. Me with this house, Jonah with finding a place to belong. Yes, I think we could do that. Our first placement was a 15-year-old named Marcus, quiet and guarded, waiting for us to disappoint him. We gave him my old bedroom and space to be himself. It wasn't easy. He tested every boundary. But slowly, over months, something shifted. He started eating breakfast with us, asking Jonah for help with homework. One evening, I found him studying my father's drawing above the fireplace. Is this permanent? Me being here? That depends on a lot of things that aren't up to us. But as long as you're here, this is your home. You're not temporary to us. Something in his face cracked. Marcus stayed 18 months before a relative took him. We stayed in touch. We fostered 3 more kids over the next years, each carrying their own wounds and hopes. The house on Sycamore Drive became a space for building family in all its complicated forms. 10 years after I'd first walked back through that door, Jonah and I sat in the backyard watching fireflies. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't bought this house? We probably never would have met. You think we'd have found each other some other way? I thought about all the unlikely coincidences, the house being sold, Jonah finding it, the hidden drawings, me being brave enough to come back. I don't know. But I'm glad we didn't have to find out. He took my hand. The house was almost 40 years old now. We'd need a new roof soon, foundation work eventually.